So, yeah. So this is being recorded now. So these are the things that we will be able to learn for this lesson. We can make use of the three-dimensional coordinate system to locate absolute location of points in space and calculate distance between points ng mga usual, and then locate midpoints of line segments, and then identify and give equations for spheres. Okay? Hindi pala maganda yung red. I'm so sorry. Pero sige, babasahin na lang natin. Next time, I'm going to, kasi dito sa screen ko, okay lang naman siya. Pero nung nakikita ko dito as being shown in the screen sa Zoom, medyo hindi nababasa. So, papalitan ko. I'll be better next time. Alam nyo naman, no, in elementary mathematics, the real number line the set of real numbers R is represented normally with an infinite straight line that extends to the left and extends to the right. Normally, yung 0 ay naroroon sa gitna, and then nandito yung mga integers, no? Alam niyo na ito, I don't need to explain. Nandyan lahat ng mga numbers, rational, integer, what else? Irrational, even, negative square root of 2. This is irrational. Tsaka yung pi, no? It's somewhere there. And then, your teacher introduced you to a set of ordered pairs, no? Ordered pairs. When you say ordered pairs, ganito itsura niyan. X, Y. The set of all ordered pairs of real numbers is then represented by a flat plane. Now, ang tawag nyo dito sa flat plane na ito yung Cartesian plane. Kasi si Henry, anong pangalan ni Descartes? Sino nakakaalam ng pangalan ni Descartes?
Rene
Descartes. Ayun, Rene Descartes. Oo. Pero yung spelling ay hindi Descartes, di ba? Oo, kasi French siya eh. French ba yun? Oo, kasi yung mga French mahilig magtago ng mga letters. Yan. May finifix ka na point kasi ang position, tatandaan nyo, ang position ng mga points in space is always relative. No? Parang sa physics, di ba? Sa physics, this is a physics concept. Hindi mo madedetect yung motion ng isang bagay pag wala kang reference point or reference frame. Kagaya sa math, no, how do we represent it mathematically? We make use of axes to have reference, no, to have a reference frame. Ang reference frame natin dito yung x and y axis. X-axis, usually siya yung horizontal, pero it doesn't necessarily have to be horizontal ha, kasi yung word na horizontal ay relative din. Tas perpendicular to it is the y-axis, yung point of intersection nila, yung origin, no? Pag sinabing 2, 3, sabihin yung 2, siya yung directed distance niya from the y-axis, baligtad. Yung 3, siya yung directed distance niya from the x-axis. Wala na akong gustong sabihin dito kasi alam na natin ito. Now, let us consider now the set of all tripoles. This time, hindi ordered pairs, but ordered tripoles. Ano yung sabihin ni sir ng tripoles? Yung ordered pair mo, sisingitan mo lang ng additional coordinate or argument, if you may want to call it an argument. Another coordinate, which we are calling the z-coordinate, no? Maraming elements of ito, of course, infinite set ulit ito, no? But how can we represent it geometrically? So what geometric object does this represent? So that's what we would like to answer. Ano nga ba? Sa calculus, meron tayong paraan. We start with a fixed point. Yung fixed point nito, ito yung tatawagin nating point with coordinate 0, 0, 0, or ang tawag natin ay origin. And then, at this point, magdodrawing tayo ng tatlong mutually perpendicular and concurrent. Ang sabihin ng concurrent, nag-intersect at the same point. No, through lines through the origin, call them the x-axis, the y-axis, and the z-axis. So parang iisipin nyo, meron ka lang additional na axis dito, ito yung bago, Ito na yung luma yung x and y axis. No? Nakahiga. And then, perpendicular to the xy plane na tinatawag, magdodrawing ka ng isa pang line so that the line is mutually orthogonal or perpendicular to both x and y axis, like as shown. Okay? And then, itong mga lines na ito are actually real number lines. So you can find any real number in the x-axis, the same real number in the y-axis, the same real number in the z-axis. So parang tatlong kopya ito ng mga real number line. By the way, ang nakikita nyo dito ay kalahati lang ng real number line. May isa pang kalahati yan. For example, yung negative portion ng x-axis na rito, hindi ko lang drawing. No? No, gusto ko lang yung ipakita dito yung positive side. Ayaw natin ng negativity. Charot. Tapos, yung negative side ng y-axis naman, makikita nyo dito sa kabila. And then yung negative side ng z-axis na rito sa ilalim. Para kasing imagine niyo na nasa likod na yan ng nasa likod na yan ng stage. Kaya dinadash ko na lang. Okay? Now, these lines determine planes. For example, the plane that contains both the x and y axis is called the xy plane, as pictured in the diagram. And then the plane that contains both the x and the z axis is called the xz plane. On the other hand, yung plane naman that contains both the y and the z axis is called as the yz plane. So basically, meron tayong tatlong coordinate planes. No? Merong xy, xz, at yz. Okay? And these planes, no? It separates the space. Sorry, natatakpan ko. Paano ba? Medyo baligtad yung These coordinate planes separate the space into, tatanungin ko sana, ilang parts? Ang sagot, 8. No? Bakit 8? Parang imaginein mo, meron kang block of cake. Hahatiin mo ng isang paganito, vertically. Hahatiin mo ng isang paganito, horizontally. Tapos may isa pa vertically na paganito naman. Yung isang, ano ba? Paganon. Pag dalawang hati, 4. Di ba? Isa pang hati na horizontal na paganon, 8. Ang tawag doon sa 8 parts na yon, octants. Dati diba kapag plane, quadrants kasi 4 parts. In this case, kapag 3-dimensional na tayo, octants ang tawag. And by the way, meron tayong palaging finifix na ang tawag ay first octant. Pag narinig niyo yung word na first octant, it is the set of all points x, y, and z so that x, y, and z are all positive. When you only consider the points whose coordinates are all positive, or yung mga points na nakikita nyo dito sa diagram ko na yun naririto, ang tawag dyan ay first octant. Now, sino yung second, sino yung third, sino yung fourth, fifth, sixth, seven, and eighth? We don't really label. Basta ang may label lang ay yung first octant. You can imagine this, no, to be yung parang corner ng isang room, no, when you are in a room. Ito yung corner ng isang room, no, you can go forward and backward, you can go sideways, left and right, and you can go upward and downward. Yun yung z-axis. Okay, am I going too fast? Hindi naman. Ay, paano bang sagot nyo dun? Mabilis ba ako? Hindi yan, 0. So I hope you can still follow. Oh yeah. So let's proceed with the next slide. Pero bago pala yun, I forgot something. Paano kayo nagda-drawing or paano niyo yan i-drawing sa sarili niyo notebook? By the way, I forgot to tell you. I am requiring you to have your respective notebooks. Kahit na tayo ay online, I want you to still experience writing math with your own hands. Okay? O di yung mga kaklase yung nakakaangat-angat, may iPad, sa iPad magsulat. Basta ang gusto ko, magsulat pa rin kahit sa papel habang ako ay nag-lecture. Sanayin niyo yung sarili nyo na even though ito'y recorded, online tayo, nasa computer naman lahat, nandun naman yan sa libro, sir. Sanayin niyo yung sarili nyo na kayo'y nagsusulat ng math. Kasi ang math, ang isa sa mga sikreto, gaya ng mga tinatanong ni Rex, ayan, unti-unting lumalabas sa mga sikreto ko. Ang math, na-master siya by muscle memory. Meron tayong tinatawag na muscle memory. Yung kamay nyo, meron niyang memory. No? Minsan kapag may isang concept na hindi mo maalala, pero pag naalala mo, sinulat ko yun eh. Then you can somehow remember it easily. Kasi meron kang muscle memory. Okay ba? So let's continue. Meron na ba kayong mga panulat dyan at susulatan? O yan, very good sa mga nag-1. Sa mga nag-0, keep up naman dyan. Kuha kayo ng papel, dali na. Okay, thank you for the response. Let's continue. Yan. Ang tanong, paano natin ngayon i-represent yung point or the ordered triple na A, B, at C? No, kasi yan, may point ka na A, B, and C. Paano mo siya i-locate? Ang definition natin ganito. Yung ordered triple A, B, C may now be represented as a point such that this point, yung A, no, is its directed distance from the YZ plane. Pag sinabi natin directed distance, it could be positive, negative, or zero. Okay? Pag sinabing, kasi ang YZ plane, hinahati niya yung space sa, what do you call this? Sa dalawang parts. Parang sabihin na lang natin left side at right side. Negative side at positive side. Pag nandun ko sa positive side, positive yung coordinate, yung A. Pag nandun ko sa negative side, nung x-axis, negative yung A. Ganun yun. Right? Si B, siya naman yung directed distance from the XZ plane, while si C, siya yung directed distance ng point from the XY plane. Pero huwag nyo nang isipin to kasi alam nyo nakakalito pa to eh. Let me just illustrate. So for example, we are locating the point 312. So where will you locate 312? Ganito. Ako, ang nasa isip ko when I see, every time I see the point 312, binubura ko muna yung 2 kasi sanay tayo sa XY plane eh. Ang gawin mo sa XY plane, hanapin mo yung point na 31. Ito yun, no? Diba ito yung X3. Kunwari 3 ito. Ito yung 1 sa Y. So yung 3, 1 sa XY plane, naririto. In fact, yung point nito ay 3, 1, 0 kasi nandoon ka sa XY plane. So paano mo malalaman yung 3, 1, 2? Yung 2, yung Z, parang imagine nyo floor, nasa second floor ka. Gumagawa ka kasi ng maraming copies ng XY plane sa iba't ibang floors. Naintindihan nyo? So what you're going to do is, yung point na ito, iaakyat mo lang ng 2 floors upward. Kung negative man yung 2, it's going to be 2 floors downward. Naintindihan nyo ba? But of course, these coordinates need not be integers, ha? Tatandaan nyo, pwedeng square root of 2. But of course, it will follow accordingly. So parang ang mangyari, yung rectangle na ito na ginawa mo sa XY plane, gagawa ka lang ng copy niya doon sa same XY plane, pero iaakyat mo 2 units upward. And then, yung corner ng rectangle na opposite ng origin, yun yung point na 312. Yung sinasabi na ito lang yun. Yung 3, siya yung directed distance ng point from the YZ plane. Yung 1, siya naman yung directed distance ng point from the XZ plane. At yung 2, siya naman yung directed distance ng point from the XY plane. Maliwanag ba? Maliwanag pa? Oh, madali pa lang to eh. Siyempre, binobola-bola ko lang kayo. Kunwari, yung subject na to maganda. Kunwari, yung subject na to interesting. So later, mahirap na. Ganun talaga mga teacher, di ba? Oh, yan. The manner of labeling points in space using an ordered tripole, yung system na tinutukoy natin, is what we call as a three-dimensional coordinate system. Or more formally, it is the one-to-one correspondence between the set R3 of what they call this, ordered tripoles of real numbers, tsaka yung three-dimensional space, yung correspondence, yung paraan natin ng pag-label, we call it the three-dimensional coordinate system. So you might want to ask, sir, meron bang four-dimensional coordinate system? Technically, yes. No? But if you want me to draw four spatial dimensions, it might be hard kasi ang ating perception, our brains can only perceive up to 3 dimensions kasi that's what our brain is trained, di ba? To perceive. Kasi hanggang 3 dimensions lang ang kayang i-perceive. Pero kung tatanungin niyo sa sir, meron bang 4-dimensional na space? Yes, meron. Yun yung R4 na tinatawag. Ang R4 naman, ang laman na ito, mga ordered quadruples. Okay? X, Y, Z, and W are real numbers. Alam niyo naman sa math, ang isang bagay ay nag-e-exist independent on whether kaya mo siyang i-exhibit in our physical world. No? Hindi kagaya sa science. Sa science, kailangan mo siyang ma-exhibit sa isang experiment. Let's say meron kang theory or meron kang mathematical theory. If you want to call it science, you have to exhibit it in the lab or in some way, no? Naintindihan niyo ba ang pinagkaiba ng math? Sa math, R4 exists kasi kaya natin siyang i-define properly. Pero sa science, kailangan ma-exhibit mo siya talaga. In general, meron tayong tinatawag na Rn, where n is any positive integer. Ang laman nito mga ordered n tuples. This time, dahil mauubos na yung alphabet natin, gumagamit na tayo ng subscript instead. No? Kasi yung subscript na yan, hindi mauubos. You understand? Pag sinabing Rn, ang laman niyan yung mga set of all n tuples. When you say n tuples, kapag ang n ay 2, ordered pair. Pag ang n ay 3, ordered triple. And so on. Okay ba? Sir, paano yung geometry niyan? I mean, paano nyo i-represent ito using pictures? Kasi, di ba, as kids, sanay tayo na ang math ay dinodrawing ng mga teachers, no? Technically, sabi nga ng mga physics majors, no, ang space natin, or sabi ni Einstein, ang space natin ay 4-dimensional talaga. Yung tinatawag na space-time. No? Kaya ngayon space-time kasi space plus time. Ang space natin may tatlong spatial dimension and other extra dimension called as time. Paano nyo maiintindihan ito? No? Ibig sabihin ang space-time ay R4, X, Y, Z, tapos T. Ayan. And these variables are independent of one another. Ang ibig sabihin ng independency, T ay hindi function ng X, Y, and Z. Na gumagalaw siya or independent of X, Y, or it's changing independent of X, Y, and Z. Itong tatlo, ito yung tinatawag nating spatial dimension. Ito yung location. Ano spelling ng spatial? Is it a C or is it a T?
T.
T ba yun? Ano? Ayan, thank you. Muntikan ko ng masulat na space. Kasi space di ba? Hindi ganito, no? Sagwa. Lalong hindi ganito. Joke lang. Tapos ito yung time. Parang you can imagine na yung point na X, Y, Z, let's say may particle ka in space, no? May point ka in space. Ito yung point in space. Yung point in space-time. Maliban sa position mo in space, sinasabi na itong point na to when, kailan ka naroon. Yung pang-apat na dimension, sinasabi niya kung anong point in time ka naroon sa position na yon. Kaya pwede nyong imaginein na ang R4 ay parang 3D na video. Parang kung ikaw ay isang supreme being na nasa labas ng space-time, parang imaginein mo, nanonood ka ng 3D na video. O kagaya natin ng mga 3D entities, nakakapanood tayo ng 2D na video. Diba? Ang 2D na video, parang binubuo yan ng mga frames, ng mga two-dimensional frames, na magkakasunod-sunod lang na ganyan yan. Pinagdudugtong-dugtong ng computer, tapos yung brain na lang natin ang nagko-connect. Diba? Yung axis na ito yung time. Tapos yung bawat frame mo may x at y axis. Kaya yung 2D na video, it's actually a three-dimensional space-time. Meron kang x, y, t. Parang yung bawat moment, isang point yun, or isang slice yun ng space-time at a given t. Naintindihan niyo ba? At a given moment. So parang yung space-time na sinasabi sa physics, yung four-dimensional na space-time, parang yan, slices na mga set of all moments in time, no? Nasa ang position ka at a given time. So hindi natin iniisip yung pang-apat na coordinate as a spatial dimension. In fact, it's a time dimension. Yun yung isabihin natin ng space-time. Tama ba yung pagkaka-explain ko, mga physics majors? Kasi if you don't know, when I was younger, I think when I was younger than you that time, I must have pursued a career in physics. Mas gusto ko talaga mag-physics noon kesa math kasi that time I wanted to be the first Filipino astronaut. And then I searched online sa NASA kung paano maging astronaut. Nabasa ko noon, you have to be at least a PhD in engineering or physics. That time, na yun yung requirement. So, sabi ko, ayoko naman maging engineer kasi ang mga engineer mukhang magbabaho. Sabi ko, sige, mag-physics na lang ako. Kaya lang, may mga nangyari, napunta ko sa math. Pero hindi naman ako nagsisisi kasi I understood physics better because I have knowledge sa math. So, meron tayong exercise. So, for example, we wanted to sketch the line segment whose endpoints are, what's this? P with coordinates 3, 1, 2, and Q with coordinates 1, -3, -2. So, tignan natin kung paano yan ini-sketch. So, basically, magdodrawing ka lang ng axis. Yan ang una, no? Kunwari gagawin niyo to sa notebook niyo. So sundan niyo ako. Now, paano niyo i-drawing ito? Titignan niyo muna yung mga coordinates na involved. Tignan niyo, oh. Ang mga x na involved, 1 at 3 lang. So, ibig sabihin, I don't need to show the negative side of x. Okay? So, nakikita niyo x-axis ko, almost positive side lang ang nakikita on screen. But, I need a positive y and a negative y. Positive 1 sa y, negative 3 sa y. So, I need to show more of the negative side of y than the positive side of y. Kasi 1 nandito, 1, 2, 3 nandun. Do you understand? At sa z, 2 at negative 2 up and down to. So, I need to show both the negative and the positive side of z. Just like here. And then, ito for aesthetics lang. Shinadan ko yung XY plane para meron kayong reference kung nasan yung sahig, ground zero. Okay? And then, lalocate natin muna yung 3, 1, 2, which is P. Ay, ito pala yung mga important coordinates. Yan yung mga nabanggit doon sa mga points. So, where can we locate 3, 1, 2? Nagdrawing ako ng rectangle. No? Yung intersection na to, anong coordinate niyan? Diba? That is 3, 1, 0. Kasi nasa ground 0 ka. But if I want 3, 1, 2, anong gagawin? Ulit, aakyat ka ng 2 floors upward by simply copying the rectangles there. Nakuha niya? Kailangan medyo magaling kang mag-drawing. Kung hindi naman, it doesn't matter. Basta alam mo yung konsepto kung nasaan. So, nasaan yung 3, 1, 2? There. Nandun yung point na P. Drawing na natin to kanina. Now, paano mo naman at the same time ida-drawing si Q? Hanapin mo yung 1, -3 muna sa green na plane. Ayun na. Nakita niya ba? If you want, you can zoom in. Wag na doon sa mukha ko kasi yung mukha ko parang orange kapag zoom nyo. Nakikita niya? O sige nga, i-zoom ko. Wait. Paano ba mag-zoom? Ayan. Uy, ano yung 2? Ano yung sabihin ng 2? Brother. 1 pala. Okay. Nakikita niya, no? Very well. No? Kung nasan yung 1, nasan yung 1, -3, 0. Ito yun, no? Yung rectangle na to. Ito yung 1, -3, 0. Ground 0. Ano ba yung y-coordinate? Ano ba yung y-coordinate? -2. -2. So, bababa ka ng 2 units down. Anong nangyari? 1, -2. Ayan. Kokopya ka, gagawa ka ng copy ng rectangle 2 floors below. Yung gagawa ka ng rectangles, ulit, rectangular box actually. And then yung corner ng rectangular box na opposite ng origin, which is this, yun yung Q. Okay? So idudugtong mo lang, nilagyan ko ng dash yan to indicate na to indicate that it's under the XY plane. Hindi na natin siya nakikita from where the camera is located. Kumbaga, yung mata natin yung CCTV. Hindi na natin nakikita kasi nasa ilalim na ng lupa. Okay? Naintindihan nyo ba to? Okay. Now, you can sometimes, alam nyo, sometimes if you want to show a portion, an important portion of your picture, no, you might want to change the camera angle kung nasaan yung CCTV mo, no. For example, this is one of those cases where you can play around with your drawings, lalo yung mga magagaling mag-drawing. Tingnan niyo yung camera angle ko. Kumbaga, relative to the original picture, yung camera ko, kung dito mo ililipat, makita niyo ba yan? Kung nandyan yung camera ko, mukha bang camera yun? Kaya nyo na nga, wag nyo nang anuhin. Kaya nga ako nag-drawing na lang ng latte kasi ako marunong mag-drawing by hand. Kung lilipat mo yung camera dito, ito yung makikita mo na. No? Nakikita nyo ba? Normally, this is what we do. We put arrows kung nasaan yung positive directions. Positive direction of X, positive direction of Y, positive direction of Z. Sir, lagi bang yung Z-axis nakaturo sa taas, yung X at Y lagi nakaturo dyan? It doesn't really matter. Pero this is the convention. When you say convention, parang hindi naman ito rule talaga, but parang napagkasundoan na rule na gagamitin natin all the time ay yung right hand rule. When you say right hand rule, X, kung may right hand mo, ito yung right hand ko eh. X, Y, Z. Ikot mo yung kamay mo. X, Y, Z. Sabi, pag kanan daw pinapanulat mo, it's always good to use the right hand rule. X, Y, Z. Okay? Pag kaliwa, babaligtad yan. X, Y, Z. Kaliwang kamay naman. Hindi babaligtad yung yung slide. Kasi parang naka-mirror. I don't know kung baligtad. Hindi naman siguro. Sige. Let's continue. So, did you capture everything in this slide? Yan. Ngayon marunong na kayo mag-drawing ng line segment, no? Mag-locate ng points. The next natural question is, how long is this line segment? Or you might want to say, ano kaya yung distansya, sir, nung P at saka nung Q? Kasi that is a very fundamental question, di ba? Well, if you are in the Cartesian plane, there is what we call as the distance formula. It's, given in using the following formula. Ito yung square root ng mga sum of the squares. Ang ginagamit niyo kasing formula dito yung Euclidean distance. But there are several other ways to get distance. For example, you can use the Taxicab metric, etc. Pero hindi natin didiscuss yun. Ang didiscuss lang natin yung regular na Euclidean distance. Sir, so paano kino-compute? Kino-compute yung difference ng mga x coordinates in E square, difference ng mga y coordinates in E square, tapos ina-add yung mga squares and then you take the square root. Sir, how do we extend this to the three-dimensional space? No problem. Ang gagawin nyo lang, dadagdagan nyo lang ng isang term yung formula nyo. This time, i-add mo yung difference ng mga z coordinates and then take the square bago mo i-square root. Question, why does this formula work? Now, why does this formula work? Well, you can look at this picture. Kapag meron kang dalawang points in space, P and Q with these coordinates as pictured, you can actually try to draw a box, no, a rectangular box. By the way, nakita nyo kung gaano ka-importante ang mga rectangles, no, sa ating coordinate system. Kaya nga, sometimes this coordinate system is also referred to as the rectangular coordinate system kasi we use rectangles to locate points. So you can try to construct a rectangular box so that P and Q are endpoints of opposite endpoints of the box, and in such a way that the sides of the box are parallel to the coordinate planes. I mean, itong plane na ito dapat parallel sa XY, ito parallel dapat sa XZ, at ito ay parallel sa, ito yung parallel sa YZ. Naintindihan niyo ba ako? So we wanted to get the distance. Paano natin kukunin? You may want to consider this triangle. Okay? As you can see, this triangle, although it doesn't look like one, it's a right triangle where the right angle is at here. Diba? And then, this triangle as well, no, is a right triangle. It doesn't look like right kasi nakahiga siya. Now, from our perspective, hindi siya mukhang right, but it's actually right. And you are the left one. Charot. Okay? And together, ito sila. Parang yung blue na triangle ay nakatayo sa nakahigang red na triangle. Okay? Kung mapapansin nyo, ito, nasa may x-axis natin. Pag ano yung x, di ba? Ito yung y. Sulatan nga natin. Ito yung x. Ito yung y. Ito yung z. Okay? So, itong distansya na ito, mapapansin nyo, let me change color. Itong distansya na ito, mula doon hanggang doon, yung side ng box na to, is the difference between the y coordinates. Kasi sa direction ng y yan eh. Oh, parallel siya sa y eh. Diba? Ito naman, mula doon hanggang doon, ito naman yung distansya ng difference ng mga x coordinates. Right? And then, itong side naman nung ano na to, ito naman yung difference between the z coordinates. Right? Right. Now, how can we now get the hypotenuse of the red triangle? Well, you can use the Pythagorean theorem. Dahil i-square mo yung mga sides na ito, you don't need the absolute value anymore. So yung length na ito, let me color it red. Ito. Nakita nyo ba? Medyo kapalan ko nga, kasing kapal na mukha ko. Yan. Yung length niyan, okay? Yan. Ang length niyan ay square root of x1 minus x2 squared plus y1 minus y2 squared. Ang ginamit ko dyan, Pythagorean theorem. Now that you have learned this leg, now this hypotenuse is actually the leg of the blue triangle. And this is another leg. Di ba? So to get the distance, you again use the Pythagorean theorem one more time. Ito ngayon yung i-square mo. Ito yung isa pang i-square. So pag in-square mo ito, mawala yung square root. In-square mo to, you can get rid of the absolute value if you want. And then add, and then take the square root. Yun na yung distance na to. Therefore, we have that formula. Yun lang naman yun. Ito yung justification why is the formula like that, or why can we just extend the formula as such. Understand? Okay, so let's consider some examples. So let's say you're given the following pairs of points. Find the distance between them. Okay, so for number 1, let's look at the distance between P1 and Q1. Okay, so paano nga ginagawa? Walang kahirap-hirap. You simply take the square root. Handa mo na yung mahaba mong square root kasi panigurado mahaba yan. Yan. So just take the difference of the x, the difference of the y's, like so. Sorry, kulang ng parenthesis. The difference of the z, and then add their squares, then take the square root. So tingnan natin, square root of negative 2 squared. Ito naman magiging 2 squared. Ito magiging 1 squared. Square root of 9, I think. So this is 3. Ganun lang kadali. Mahirap ba? Hindi naman mahirap yung lesson, di ba? O kasi first day eh. P2, Q2. So, can somebody, sino may gustong mag-recite? Walang grade naman ito. Wala ring add. Walang plus, walang minus. Sige nga, i-dictate nyo kung ano isusulat ko. Somebody please. Para makita ko kung makakasunod kayo.
Sir, ako na lang po.
Sino ito? Si Lovely. Sige, Lovely. Please dictate.
7 minus 8
Okay.
squared
Alright.
plus negative 3 minus 1 squared
Very good.
plus negative 5 minus negative 13 squared.
Okay. Next line.
Negative 1 squared
Yeah.
plus negative 4 squared
Yes.
plus negative 5 minus 13 is 7.
Hirap, no? 7 ba?
Ay, 8, sir.
O, kita
8,
mo?
sir. Sensya na,
Talaga,
sir.
Lovely. Minamali mo kami, ha? 8 ba?
Sensya na po.
Joke
Apo,
lang,
apo.
siyempre. Okay, next. Sige nga, paki-add mo nga yan kasi hindi marunong si sir niyan. 1 plus...
1 plus 16.
O, ano yun? On your mind? That's...
17, sir.
17 plus...
64. Ay, tama, 64.
64. Oh, tapos?
81, sir.
Oh my gosh, 81. So, what's that?
9.
Very good. Thank you, Lovely. So, ganun lang
Thank you din
kadali.
po.
Madali lang, Lovely, di ba? Oh, kasi nga, first day ito.
Yes, Peter.
Sige, we will continue next. The next thing to do, ayan ako, may nakikita ko, your connection is unstable. Itong hirap kapag online class eh, no? Pero, do you still hear me? Do you hear me? Okay. Thank you. Okay. Another important thing to know is when you have a line segment with endpoints P and Q is to know the coordinate of the midpoint. The midpoint divides the line segment into two equal parts. No? Yan yung ating definition. But what is the coordinate? Of course, just like in the one dimension, kapag meron kang 2 points in the number line, to get the midpoint, you just get the average, right? You just add, divide by 2. Mag-work yon kahit na anong dimension. Kahit ikaw ay nasa 2-dimensional or 3-dimensional. Ang gagawin mo lang, i-add mo yung mga respective coordinates, divide by 2. That's why the formula. Okay? So let me have this next example. So this time, you're given the midpoint of the line segment joining P and Q, which is M. So the midpoint of PQ is M. The problem here is that given yung coordinates ng P at saka ng M, but not the coordinates of Q. So you are asked then to find the coordinates of Q. So paano nyo gagawin? So this is the picture. If you want, you can draw a picture like this. No, kahit naman hindi yan perfect. No, this is just to help your brain think about the problem. So this is P. And this is M. Yan, there. Tapos ito yung Q na hindi natin alam yung coordinates. So let's say the coordinate of Q. So lagay natin dito. Suppose that the coordinates of Q are, or ano ba tama? R or is? Kasi coordinates eh. Coordinates ba or coordinate? Nalilito ako dyan. Ano bang tama? Yung XYZ ba, is this the coordinate of Q or this is the coordinate of Q? XYZ. Ano ba tamang grammar? Ay, nako, kahit ano. Basta pag coordinates are, kapag coordinate is. Whatever. So let's just put it there. Kunwari XYZ yan. No. Since, lagay natin dito, M is the midpoint. Anong gagawin? Any idea? Anong gagawin? We shall use the midpoint formula. Then, by the midpoint formula, paano yung midpoint formula? What is true? Kapag in-average ko yung x-coordinate ng Q tsaka ng P, lalabas yung mga coordinates ng M. So, meron kang tatlong equations na lalabas, no? The first equation, when you look at the x-coordinates, you get x plus 1 over 2 is negative 2. And when you look at the y-coordinates, y plus negative 4, that's minus 4 all over 2 is 3. And ano yung last? Z minus 2 divided by 2 is equal to negative 6. Period. Which gives you 3 linear equations that you can nicely solve. Okay? This implies, when you look at the first equation, anong value ng x? Anybody? First equation, anong value ng x?
Negative 5, sir.
Negative? Very good, negative 5. So the first equation leads to the solution x equals negative 5. Very good. How about for the second equation? What is the value of y?
10, sir.
What is the value of y? Yan, sa chat box lumalabas ang sagot. Thank you. Y is 10. Bakit? 3 times 2 is 6 plus 4. That's 10. 10 ba? No, 10? Okay. Next, z coordinate. Z is negative 6 times 2, negative 12,
Negative
plus
10.
2, that's negative 10. Very good. So therefore, anong coordinates ng Q? Q have coordinates. Kasi kung gagamitin mo, sige na nga, have coordinates. Q has, ano ba ang English natin? Q has coordinates negative 5, 10, and negative 10. So alam mo yung location ng Q. Okay? All right. So that's it for this example. Because we now know how to get distances between points, no, we can now define a sphere. No, a sphere is just a set of points in space, no, so that it has the points in space have a fixed distance from a given center and a fixed distance called as the radius. So by definition, a sphere with center, lagi may dalawang elements or dalawang arguments ang sphere, no? Isang center at isang radius. Yung center ay point, yung radius ay isang positive na number. So a sphere with center C, coordinates HKL, and radius R, which is greater than 0, is the set of all points P with coordinates XYZ, such that PC, or the length of PC, is exactly R all the time, kahit anong P. No? In pictures, alam naman natin ang itsura ng sphere talaga. No? Geometrically, parang ano to, three-dimensional na circle or parang ball. No? You can call it a ball if you want. Pero yung ball na ito yung perfect na sphere. Ibig sabihin na ito, kapag kumuha ng cross-sections na ito, laging perfect na circle. When I say cross-sections, when you try to intersect it with a flat plane, ang makikita nyo intersection ay palaging circles. So if P is an arbitrary point, mali in the circle. O, kita nyo, mali yung pagkakatype ni Sir. Sphere kasi ito. If P is a point is an arbitrary point in the sphere, then of course the distance of P from C is R by definition. Using the distance formula, you can calculate distance like so, right? Ito yung distance ni PC. Ito yan. Yeah. At ito yung R. Using the distance formula. And then if you take the square, sphere ulit ito, you get this. Sa mathematics, na ang tawag natin dito, sa equation na to, you call this as the center radius form. Okay? Because this equation reveals two things, the center of the sphere and its radius. Naintindihan nyo ba? Ba't siya tinawag na center radius form? All right. So, let's illustrate kung naintindihan natin by answering this example. Show that the equation given as shown represents a sphere. If it is a sphere, identify its center and its radius. Sige, I will give you 1 minute to try answering it on your own. Sige, 1 minute. Okay. Na-figure out niyo ba kung anong gagawin? Kahit na hindi niyo alam yung sagot, so palagay niyo paanong gagawin dito? Anybody could suggest?
Sir, kung
Yes,
ano po yung
yan. The
completing-
key concept according to Ira Jasper ba to? And Rika May, sabi nila by completing the square. Yes. Kagaya ng ginagawa nyo sa circles, no? You can just use completing the squares to reveal the center and the radius of the circle. Paano? Paano ginagawa? What we do is we from this equation, so let me rewrite the equation first. From this equation, we simply collect all the terms that have an x in it. No? So for example, we can group this. Right? Ganyan. And then group natin yung mga may y. And then group natin yung mga z. And then yung constant, lagay mo sa kabila. Kasi wala siyang nakapareha. And then, yung bawat binomials na ito na nakagroup, mag-a-add tayo ng constant in order for it to become a perfect square trinomial. And yun yung sinasabi nila na completing the square. And how do we complete the square if the constant term is missing? Anong ginagawa? Anybody? Can you speak on the mic para mas mabilis? Kung meron kayong mic.
I-divide po yung b sa 2, then i-squared po yung answer.
Very good, no? One way to complete the square is to look at yung coefficient ng x or ng y or ng z, ng mga linear terms, no, yung coefficients. Yung b, sabi nga ni Lovely, yung b, kasi normally b ang pangalan nun, di ba? Tapos, i-divide mo siya sa by 2 and then take the square. Thank you, Kurt. Nababasa ko yung comment mo. So, for this example, yung -4, we will look at -4. And then, divide -4 by 2, that's -2. And then, square that, that's +4. Kaya mag-a-add tayo ng +4 over here. Tapos, dito rin, 2 divided by 2 is 1. Take the square, so we're going to add 1. And then, divide 8 by 2, you get 4. You take the square, that's 16. Now, syempre, if that is an equation, hindi na to balance, no? Kailangan kung ano yung in-add mo sa kaliwa for the equation to hold, to remain true, kung ano yung in-add mo sa kaliwa, i-add mo rin sa kanan. So, i-add mo dito yung in-add mo na 4, yung 1, at saka yung 16. Now, you now express every group of terms inside the parentheses as a square of a binomial. Ano ginagawa yun? That's easy. You just consider the first and the last term. You take the square roots, no? Like so. Ito naman magiging y plus 1. Siyempre, kung ano yung sign ng middle term, yun yung contribution niya. Yung sign ng middle term, yun yung magiging sign sa gitna ng binomial. And then, z plus 4 squared. And then, yung right-hand side mo is, pakigawa nga ito. Negative,
9.
ano ba to? Negative 12 plus 4 plus 1. Ang hirap naman. Itong ayoko sa math eh. Ano ba to?
It's 9, sir.
Negative 8 plus 1. Negative 7. Walang tiwala eh. No? Tama, correct. That's 9. Yes. And it turned out that 9 is actually the square of 3. Now, take note that y plus 1 is actually y minus negative 1. No? Remember that in the center radius form, laging minus dapat yung nasa gitna. But in case na plus yan, you just change the sign. So parang ganun yung rule natin. So therefore, the equation represents a circle. So kapag ang ginagawa nyo tatandaan nyo, when you give conclusions, you always respond in a complete sentence. Sanayin yung sarili nyo na complete yung sentence. Nakikita nyo ba yung ginagawa ko, no? When I write conclusions, I always write in complete sentences. Kasi this is also a good training, no? Para masanay nyo yung sarili nyo. A circle centered at, so ano yung center? Can you dictate the center, please?
Two, -1, -4.
Very good. 2 negative, thank you, David ka ba, Emmanuel?
David po, Emmanuel.
Kahit ano, no?
Opo.
2, -1, -4. Sabi
Sir?
ay, sino yan?
Sir, ano po? Circle po ba or sphere?
Ayan na naman tayo, no? Ang galing-galing talaga ni Sir. Thank you. Mali tayo. Ito, mali ako. Ito ay sphere. Thank you. And radius, anong radius? Anong radius natin?
3,
Three po.
sir.
Very good. Okay, so that's the conclusion and that completes the solution for this problem. So kita nyo, ang bilis natin. Natapos na natin yung 15 slides for today. So there. Sige nga, kayo muna and then we will try to solve it later. So I'm giving you maybe 3 minutes to do this para makapag-address pa tayo ng mga questions. Sige, 3 minutes. We'll be back at 1:38. Okay, nandito na ako ulit. Ang galing na lumilipad. Yan, may sumagot na sa chat box. Honestly, hindi ko alam yung sagot. So we will check if we will get the same answer. So palagay nyo, ano yung mga concepts na magagamit dito?
Midpoint.
Midpoint
Yes. No,
po.
kasi you are given endpoints of a diameter. No, kailangan yung alam na ang center ng circle ay binubuo ng dalawang parameters, di ba? Yung center tsaka yung radius. Now, in order to get the center, you need to know the fact that the center is actually a midpoint of any diameter. And that, kapag alam mo na yung center, using the midpoint formula, How do you get the radius now? There are two ways, no? Either you take the distance of the center from either P or Q. Or another method, you can get the distance of P and Q. Tapos, divide mo sa 2 because the radius is always 1/2 the diameter. So any of the methods will work. Wala naman akong prescribe na particular solution. When I read your work, I normally read all the things that you write. So I grade according to how you actually think. Wala akong method na mas preferred. Basta tama, that's correct. Ay, ang galing ng English na. Basta tama, that's correct. Basta tama, yung ginawa, kahit na anong method pa yan, or kung anong method yung pre-prescribe ng problem, walang problema. Okay? So first, kunin muna natin yung center. So meron tayong dalawang kailangan. Number 1, center. And the radius number 2. So for the center, so if C is, if C, may variables tayo, is the center, then C is the midpoint of PQ. Thus, okay, H is, that's 2 plus 6 divided by 2, that's 4. K is 0 plus negative 4 divided by 2, that's negative 2. And L is, sorry, natatakpan ko. Ano ba to? Ganun. L is negative 3 plus negative 1 divided by 2. That's negative 2. Tama ba ako? So far. Therefore, the center, tignan natin ng 1, is at 4, negative 2, negative 2. All right. Number 2, for the radius, how do we get the radius? So kahit anong method na lang. The radius R is now equal to, for example, you can take the distance of C and P, no, if you want. And the distance of C and P by the distance formula is basically 4 minus 2 squared plus negative 2 minus 0 squared plus negative 3 minus negative, ay, ginagawa ko. I'm lost. Ba't naging negative 1? Oh my God. Ano to? CP. Nasa may C. Ito yung C. Ito yung P. So, tingin nga tayo. Okay. That's negative 2 minus negative 3. Oy, naputol na. Kung face-to-face, sinulatan ko na yung gilid ng blackboard. Wait lang. Usog ko ha. Yan. Galing, no? Buti digital na ngayon. Tama ba to? Tama ba yung ginagawa ni Sir? Yes or no? Okay. Sagutan natin. Square root ng 2 squared plus, basically 2 squared lang ulit yan, no? Plus, ito naman, 1 squared. Tama ba? 4 plus 4 plus 1 is 9. Square root of 9 is 3. So, the radius is 3. So, ano equation ng sphere? Ito na naman tayo sa circle. Equation of sphere. In center radius form. X minus 4 squared plus y plus 2. But plus 2 kasi negative 2 yun. And then, z plus 2 squared equals 9. 9. And that, yung sagot ni Francesca na nasa chat box, I think, is correct. Very good. Or baka pares kaming mali. Ano ba? Ano ba palagay nyo?
Same lang din po sa amin, sir.
Okay. So, that's it. So, for today, anong mga natutunan natin? Let us summarize. So, for today, we have learned, actually, ilan? 4 things. Now, we have learned how to use the three-dimensional coordinate system to locate points. We were able to learn how to calculate distance between points. Third, to locate midpoints of line segments. And 4, to work with equations of spheres. So do you have questions? I think I might end the recording now para makapagtanungan na tayo. Stop recording.